Name again?
I'm James Dickson.
James
I
Dickson.
report on human interest stories for AnnArbor.com.
That sounds like a big beat.
You know, the tough thing about it is that there's no you don't get press releases when you do this kind of writing. There's no meeting I attend every week. It's all very organic, so I have to spend a lot of time out of the office meeting people. You know, you got to press the flesh, or else what are you going to write about? So it's kind of it's very entrepreneurial, I would say, but it's also kind of a feast or famine type situation, where one day it'll seem like I have 4 stories and no time to write. Then I've written all 4, and it's like, well, what am I going to write about next?
Well, you probably have that tickler file, they used to call it, or something, or evergreens, stories you can always pull out of your back pocket.
Right. I mean,
on a slow day.
Part of the reason they brought me in is because I had so many ideas about what I wanted to do. Some of them are longer, and some of them are things like I just did a story on the Mud Bowl, the big fraternity football game. Used to happen during homecoming. Now it happens later in the year. I always knew I wanted to write about that, but as a student at U of M, I never had a chance to do it. So I went to Michigan, so I know the community, and I had a few ideas in my back pocket, and then stuff comes up.
I was talking to Emily just before I left, and saying, now, why did he go downstairs? So I'll ask him that. And she said, oh, it's different. It's a nicer place to work, maybe. And I made the comment to her, our old saying that you can't find a story in the newsroom. You got to get out.
I have said that. I'm the guy up there. I always tell people no story has ever broken in a newsroom.
No.
Outside of maybe the Washington Post one where the editor hit one of the writers recently, but yeah, you got to be out. You got to be meeting people. So if I need to take a 2-hour lunch with someone, I might not come back with a story that day, but I might come back with 4 story ideas to develop. So it's an investment. The last place I was at was the Detroit News. I was an editorial writer, and I struck up a friendship with Charlie LaDuff, who does really some of the best journalism in this state. And I came in. He was one of the people I actually used as a reference for this job. And I said that kind of thing is what I want to do. I think it's the voice. You know, you can get caught up in the medium, but I felt like for this being a startup, the most important thing to do was to shore up your storytelling first. In the new year, I definitely want to do more video. I bring a camera almost everywhere I go, and I end up taking a lot of my own pictures, which is a little bit different from even what some of the other journalists here do. Because I just feel like you need to build skills, and that's really your way to ensure that you'll be able to stick around. Sometimes even if no one's around in a pinch, I'll go out and shoot a picture myself. So I'm trying to really build a full set of skills here, but right now, initially, the focus has been just the story. I really wanted to get the accuracy, make sure I'm telling stories in a way that when people read them, it feels fair. I say things about them that I say it the same way that person would characterize themselves. And without exception, when I get feedback on the stories I've written about people, they say I did their story justice. And that's really the main focus at this point. I don't think that the bells and whistles are going to save journalism. I think it's all, at the end of the day, beginning of the day, it's about storytelling.
You got the notebook
Got
out.
the notebook. I actually did have a photographer for my last assignment, so this one I use. This is kind of, I use my bigger pad to write down what are the threads I want to pull as I'm telling this story. Not everything will make it for space constraints or whatever, but here's kind of everything. Then here's my actual reporting, and then I have my tape recorder from the meeting I was just at yesterday. So you use all 3.
You are using tape recorders.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, I used to go out and just do the 1932, try to write everything down. And not only is that not as good for accuracy, it gets cold in Michigan, so you can't sit out there trying to write everything down. It's just easier to get everything, and then I can focus on listening to the person I'm talking to as opposed to writing, and it divides your focus, and I want to be there with the person.
And get their quotes right.
Absolutely, and you'll have people, oh, I don't want to be recorded. It's like, well, you do want what you say to be represented accurately, and this will help me do that better than if I'm writing things in classes in digital video production and in Final Cut Pro editing. So I had a little bit of a skill set there and some background.
That's a good
and
skill set.
I had plenty of stories I had already written, editorials. I mean, a lot of different types of writing. But I think it was the enthusiasm that made the difference. Actually, when I was coming in my very first day, I bumped into Tony in the bathroom, and I hadn't really spoken with him much. It had been mostly
It's an
Amelie.
awkward place for a job interview.
Very awkward place to see someone the first day, and especially before you start. And he confirmed that it was the enthusiasm that made the difference. So I kind of view that as a mandate to really go out there and play. I think curiosity is probably the biggest driver of good journalism. Some of the best stories, I think, come when a reporter says, I wonder why this is that way. And you go out and you find the answer, because if you have the question, it's just like school. If you have the question, your classmates probably have the same question. And when you can answer the big what ifs and whys, and yeah, it really is a form of community service.
You write a story, and you think, okay, boom, I'm done. What happens to your story?
Oh, then it goes through the editing process.
Does it? You're not posting. You're not posting.
No. I mean, fortunately, we do have access in the back end. So, say I notice a typo that no one else noticed, I'll make sure to go back and get rid of that. But yeah, your stuff is definitely vetted, and I'd say my editors have made some of my stories 20 to 30% better, because just like this, I like to throw everything. I like to throw everything in, and I like to let my editors do the editing job. Okay, so I'm going to throw everything at you. You're going to whittle it down into the story. I've already done some whittling myself. It's kind of like chiseling a statue, and my editors definitely help me with that.
Do you? Are your stories, human interest stories, are probably popular for the Sunday paper?
They are. Sunday, Thursday. I mean, we only have the two. So,
right.
but especially if you're just sitting around at home on Sunday, it's just cool to. I mean, it can get depressing reading about how schools are wasting your money or government's doing things you don't agree with. But a story about another person, that's an interest we all have.
Do you, in your own mind, what are you? Are you a Sunday newspaper guy or a 24/7 web guy?
I'm just a storyteller. At the end of the day, that's the title I identify with most. I mean, I do some creative writing. I have bought a ton of books on screenwriting and actual screenplays. I'm looking to branch out into that too. So, to me, the storytelling is what matters most. Even more than a reporter, I'm a storyteller.
Okay, do your editors see you as more of a Sunday newspaper guy or the 24/7 web guy?
I'd say the web guy. I'd say the web guy, definitely, because, I mean, we post things all hours of the day, and sometimes I'll say, maybe we want to hold that till tomorrow, and they'll say, no, people read us all the time, and people expect the website to be updated pretty frequently, so that's why I have a dedicated staff, but it's still not as big as you see at traditional newspapers, because we don't need to be. But at the same time, that means when something comes up, you got to go grab it.
Why don't you need to be?
Well, because we only come out 2 days a week as far as our print edition. We have plenty of contributors, and when you add contributors to the mix, we have quite a few people producing content for the website, freelancers, all kinds of things. But the reason we're not over 2 blocks from now, at the Ann Arbor News, is because we had to cut some of the fat. Yeah, I tend to work late in the day, usually from at least 11 to 7. So, yeah, so you'll end up staying later sometimes, or sometimes you'll be packing your bag up to leave, and we just got a call, so you got to go, and then you go do it. I work 29 hours a week, so you got to try to find a way to squeeze it all in. And the way me and Amelie decided worked the best is to have 3 days, essentially 8 hours, but who really works just 8 hours, and then 1 day, 5 hours. So the short day, sometimes I just use that for writing stories I've already reported on. Sometimes I use it to organize myself and do clerical matters. Really depends on the week.
29 hours, that's an odd number.
That is an odd number.
How'd you come up with that?
I didn't.
Okay.
I was
They told you
will
that's
be
what
working 20. Okay.
That's what we have, okay.
Great, sounds great.
Was
I'm
it-
making more money now, part-time, than I was then. So
And you were full-time then?
I was full-time then.